What's up, you guys? I'm Rachel Demita, and welcome to the Courtside Club. Just when we thought this Sheryl Swoopes drama was gonna blow over, things just got so much messier.
All that hate don't get you nowhere. Haters always gonna get theirs, man. They always gonna get theirs. News has broken. We didn't even know. Y'all remember all the hate and jealousy that Sheryl Swoopes was kicking over there on Gil's Arena during Caitlin Clark's rookie year and even before her rookie season even started? Y'all remember all of that? They have both been fired.
ESPN just put Sheryl Swoopes back in the middle of the Caitlin Clark conversation, but fans noticed something else first. Her name started vanishing from broadcast lineups, and now the internet is calling it fired again.
When everybody else, they're quick to throw stats, right? It's like, oh, well, this is what she did. Like somebody's like, oh, Sheryl Swoopes only scored 34 points in the WNBA. Caitlin scored 35. So you can't use stats when it benefits you.
Let's be careful with words. I'm not saying there's been an official press release that says you're terminated. What I'm saying is, when teams began announcing their broadcast teams for the new season, people started pointing out that Swoopes wasn't there anymore.
They have both been fired from Underdog Sports, allegedly and according to Gilbert Arenas.
And the silence felt organized. Therefore, the real question isn't, did she get fired? The real question is, did the WNBA quietly decide it's done tolerating the Clark smear campaign and finally made an example out of a legend? Because if that's what's happening, it changes the rules for everybody. Stay to the end, because I'm going to give you the one signal that tells you whether this is a real industry blackout or just online noise. Now, here's what most people don't know. This isn't the first time Sheryl Swoopes has had a consequences finally arrived moment. Back in 2016, Loyola University Chicago investigated what players described as a toxic, volatile environment.
Loyola University basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes, she's under investigation, accused of mistreating players. One of them is speaking out this morning, telling us why she wanted to transfer.
Not tough coaching, not standards. Players described fear, humiliation, and emotional blow-ups that left people crying during halftime or sitting in silence during practice.
Loyola College basketball coach Sheryl Swoopes is being investigated this morning amid allegations that she mistreated players.
It was the environment she created. I was belittled, humiliated, made to feel extremely small.
The details matter because they show a pattern. When power is challenged, the response isn't calm leadership, it's pressure. It's control, it's volatility. But here's the key. That situation was behind closed doors. This time, it's in front of cameras. And the target isn't a roster, it's Caitlin Clark. While most of basketball was celebrating Clark's college run and her arrival as the engine of the Fever's new era, Swoopes kept repeating narratives that didn't just sound harsh, they sounded sloppy. She claimed Caitlin needed 5 years to break the scoring record, but Caitlin did it in 4 seasons.
That's for Caitlin, but you asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player said it. Yeah, that'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it should be.
She claimed Caitlin takes around 40 shots a game, but Caitlin averaged roughly 22.7 shots.
Caitlin Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
Carry on.
I know you like that.
Hell yeah.
Those aren't tiny mistakes. Those aren't "I was off by a little." Those are the kind of numbers you say when you're not checking facts, because facts aren't the point. The point is to make the viewer feel something. Selfish, overrated, not real. Therefore, the problem isn't criticism. Criticism is normal. The problem is when criticism turns into a pattern of misinformation that follows the same player every time her name comes up. And once that pattern locks in, the audience starts seeing it as personal. That's why this escalated beyond fans arguing online, because other voices stepped in. One of the loudest moments came when a major sports personality went off about how you can't talk about the Indiana Fever's success and accidentally leave Caitlin Clark out of the story. He basically said, "You know basketball too well for that to be an accident." But the bigger turning point was Nancy Lieberman, because Lieberman didn't just disagree with Swoopes, She challenged her credibility. Lieberman reached out directly to correct the false stats and make the simplest point in sports media: facts matter. And according to Lieberman, that conversation didn't go well. She later said their relationship basically stopped.
I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend and I said, you know, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And, you know, you might like Boston, I might like the Yankees. You know, it's okay to have difference of opinions. Well, she got upset with me on the phone, and I was like, Sheryl, you know, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship it pretty much is not happening at this point.
Now pause here, because this is where the story flips. When fans say fired again, they're pointing to what happened next. The transcript you're working from claims the WNBA didn't just stop putting Swoopes on fever games. It claims she started getting pulled from everything. Teams began announcing broadcast teams for the new season, and her name kept getting left off. Then the Dallas Wings announced their broadcast team, and people noticed she wasn't there anymore. Not less airtime, not different assignments. Missing. And in the online world, missing equals punished. Therefore, the rumor became, the league made a quiet, league-wide decision to distance itself from her commentary. Again, I'm not saying we have an official statement that confirms a firing, but I am saying the pattern of omissions is exactly the kind of thing that makes fans go, oh, this isn't random. Especially because Nancy Lieberman, the same person who publicly defended Caitlyn and pushed back on the misinformation, kept her spot. That contrast is the whole story. The analyst who defended rising talent stays. The analyst who kept tearing down the biggest rising talent disappears. That's why people are calling it fired again, because it looks like the league chose a side. But here's where it gets even more revealing. Right after that absence became a talking point, Swoopes suddenly appeared on ESPN, sounding like a different person. Instead of dismissing Caitlyn, she praised the fever. Instead of downplaying her growth, she talked about how much stronger Caitlyn got in the offseason. Instead of treating Indiana like a cute story, she described them like legitimate contenders. It was a full 180. And that's why the internet didn't treat it like growth. They treated it like panic, because the timing makes it feel like damage control. Therefore, the real headline isn't Swoopes is nicer now. The headline is, when consequences show up, the tone changes immediately. Now, where does Caitlin Clark explodes fit into this? Not as a screaming match, not as a rant, but as a reality. Her impact is now so big that it forces corrections. It forces accountability. It forces people to pick between attention and integrity. Caitlyn's presence has become the WNBA's most valuable product. Ticket demand, TV segments, social engagement, and the constant debate. Love her or hate her, she moves the entire machine. But the machine can't afford misinformation that poisons the product long term. That's why this matters for every player, every analyst, and every network. Because this isn't just about one legend being punished. It's a warning shot. If you build your platform on tearing down the league's biggest draw with shaky facts, you might not get a second chance. Now let me give you the payoff I promised. Here's the one signal that tells you whether this is a real blackout or just internet exaggeration. Watch the official broadcast team announcements and season coverage week by week. If multiple teams keep releasing their lineups and her name keeps missing, and she doesn't appear across the league's broadcast rotation, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. But if she shows up again in a different role, on a different team's coverage, or in a rotating panel slot, then the fired again narrative was mostly fans connecting dots that weren't there. That's the tell. Not one clip, not one viral tweet. A repeated absence across official lineups. And if this blackout is real, here's what it means for the Fever. Indiana is no longer happy to be here. They've got a foundation, they've got momentum, and they're building the kind of roster that turns attention into wins. Therefore, the next stage of the Caitlin Clark era isn't about proving she belongs. It's about punishing everyone who tried to rewrite what we were all watching in real time. So I'll ask you the blunt question. Do you think Sheryl Swoopes deserves to be removed from broadcast if the league believes she was spreading misinformation? Yes or no? And if you're still watching, drop Facts Matter in the comments.
Is there a player or someone you watch even more specifically because there's things in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Man, I think Luka. I mean, Luka's amazing and he's incredible. I think the way he can not only score the ball, but also the way he passes. And I think the thing about him is, like, he's not the fastest, he's not the most athletic, but he can get his defender to move where he wants him to go, and he takes up that space, and he does a really good job of either keeping the defender behind him or keeping him to the side. So I think that's something I can certainly learn from. Like, I always kind of want to run away from the defense rather than absorbing the contact and taking up the space that they give me. So
ESPN just got a new problem because Caitlin Clark didn't just appear on NBC. She walked into Madison Square Garden, sat next to NBA legends, and the whole basketball world watched her look completely at home. And here's why this matters. WNBA players are staring down a CBA fight that could shake the next season. But Caitlin just proved she can keep the spotlight, even when the league is in chaos. Stay with me, because in a minute, I'm going to show you the moment that quietly exposed the real power dynamic. Not a rumor, a live TV moment. It starts at the desk. NBC launches Basketball Night in America at MSG. Big lights, big arena, big stage. Maria Taylor introduces Caitlin like she belongs there. Carmelo Anthony is right there. Reggie Miller is right there. And Caitlin is the headline, not the game. Her. You could feel it. This wasn't WNBA Star Tries TV. This was NBC is building the future around her. But the first thing Caitlin did wasn't argue. She joked. She looked at the desk and basically admitted, "I'm short next to these guys." Later, she even posted she might need stilts next time. That one joke did a lot. It made her human. It made her likable. But it also made the clip travel, because the internet loves a star who can laugh while standing in the biggest room. Then Maria asks Caitlin about the arena, and Caitlin doesn't give a boring answer. She paints a scene. Warm-ups, buzz, noise, energy. She says Knicks fans are crazy and she loves it. That line matters because it shows what NBC wants. They want Caitlin to sound like a basketball person, not a women's basketball person. Basketball, period. Then the conversation turns to growth. Maria asks Caitlin who she watches in the NBA, and Caitlin goes straight to Luka Doncic.
Is there a player or someone you watch even more specifically because there's things in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Man, I think Luka. I mean, Luka's amazing and he's incredible. I think the way he can not only score the ball, but also the way he passes. And I think the thing about him is, like, he's not the fastest, he's not the most athletic, but he can get his defender to move where he wants him to go, and he takes up that space, and he does a really good job of either keeping the defender behind him or keeping him to the side.
Not because Luka is flashy, but because Luka controls space. Caitlin explains it clearly. She says Luka isn't the fastest, he isn't the most athletic, but he moves defenders where he wants them. He absorbs contact. He takes up space. And Caitlin admits something most stars never admit on TV. She says she tends to run away from contact, therefore she wants to learn how to use it. That's high IQ. That's real. That's not PR. And the reason this part matters is simple. WNBA fans already know Caitlin can shoot, but a lot of casual NBA fans only know the logo threes. This segment showed something deeper. It showed she understands the chess game. Therefore, NBA fans who never watched a single WNBA game just got a reason to respect her. But the night didn't stay safe, because Reggie Miller got asked an NBA comparison for Caitlin, and he picked Peyton Pritchard.
I'm actually curious too. I know you guys have seen Caitlin play. She's a one-of-ones, but is there like a comparison of someone either you played with or you guys watching the game right now that reminds you of the young lady to your right?
I like Peyton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle the basketball. He makes big shots when the shot clock's running down, a lot like this young lady right here. Isn't afraid of the big moment and is a champion like she's soon to be.
The second he said it, Caitlin's face went blank. Not angry, not rude, just deadpan. Like, that's what you went with. It was the most honest reaction you can have without saying a word. And that's why it went viral, because fans saw what they were thinking. And right there, NBC got what every network secretly prays for. A clip that spreads itself. A moment you don't need to explain, you just post it. But here's the twist. That viral moment wasn't even the biggest moment of her debut. The biggest moment was when Caitlin brought up the CBA. Live on NBC at MSG, with legends sitting next to her. Caitlin didn't dodge it. She didn't do the no comment thing. She framed it as one of the biggest moments women's sports has had, and she said she felt confident a deal would get done soon. That is massive, because it tells you Caitlin understands what's at stake, not just for her, for everyone. But here's the part the league can't ignore. When Caitlin speaks about the CBA on a massive NBA broadcast, it changes the pressure, because now the CBA story isn't trapped in WNBA circles, it's in the mainstream. Owners feel that, sponsors feel that, networks feel that. Therefore, the negotiation isn't just numbers on paper anymore. It's reputation, it's optics, it's momentum. Now let's talk about why NBC did this at all. NBC's executive producer Sam Flood called Caitlin one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Basketball, not women's basketball. That's a deliberate choice. It's positioning. It signals how NBC plans to sell her. And that's where WNBA players start to feel the tension. Because if Caitlin is being positioned as basketball's star, the league will lean on her harder. The marketing will lean on her harder. The schedule will lean on her harder. And players will ask the uncomfortable question, if the league is growing because of stars, do the non-stars get paid like it? Or do they get asked to wait their turn again? That's why people say the players will explode. Not because everyone hates Caitlin, but because a star economy creates pressure inside a locker room. It changes how people talk about value. It changes how people talk about fairness. And it changes what a strike threat really means. Because here's the scary part. Caitlin just showed she can dominate a stage outside the WNBA. That's not a criticism. That's reality. And if the WNBA season gets messy, Caitlin doesn't disappear. She stays visible. Therefore, the league's biggest star becomes even bigger. But the rest of the league risks going quiet. So this follow-up story is not Caitlin did TV. It's this. NBC just mainstreamed the WNBA's biggest leverage point on an NBA night. And Caitlin didn't just survive it. She controlled it. So now I want to ask you something. Did NBC just give the WNBA more power heading into the CBA? Or did they just make Caitlin bigger than the league at the worst possible time? If you're still watching, drop stilts in the comments.
The NBA made its triumphant return to NBC this season, and who did Universal bring in to really start it off with a bang? Who did they bring in to engage all audiences? They brought in the GOAT, also known as Michael Jordan. They teased Michael Jordan appearing up and down the bill to get people tuned in, to get people watching. Now, February 1st, they're rolling something else out. Basketball Night in America. Well, Michael Jordan, he already fulfilled his duties. He already took care of his commitments. He already reached all requirements on the contract. So who do they need to go get? Well, the next best thing, I suppose. Caitlin Clark.
ESPN fans, listen carefully because this move just changed the balance of power in women's basketball. Caitlin Clark just joined NBC's NBA studio panel. Not as a random guest, not as a one-time cameo. A real on-air role placed right next to NBA legends in prime time during the exact window when the WNBA Players Union is preparing for a CBA fight that could threaten the 2026 season.
Now, similarly, they've created some buzz with Caitlin Clark, who was announced as a special contributor for the broadcast also. She will be joining the crew there. You see Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. And CC will be making her TV analyst debut.
Stay with me, because at the end, I'm going to show you the single line in NBC's announcement that tells you how they plan to market Caitlin going forward, and why that one line quietly pressures every negotiation inside the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark has landed herself a new, very high-profile position, and I've been wondering when this was going to happen. I knew at some point, somewhere, with some miscellaneous media outlet, Caitlin Clark would get a gig, and now we know where that gig's going to be, when that gig's going to be, and who that gig's going to be for.
Here's the context. The WNBA is heading toward the end of its current collective bargaining agreement, and players have already signaled they're willing to use real leverage if the next deal doesn't deliver what they want. That means bigger pay, better travel, better working conditions, and a bigger slice of what the league is now generating. But the problem with a holdout is simple. It only works if everyone feels the same pain at the same time. And Caitlin just made a move that reduces her pain, because her NBC role carries through the spring of 2026. So if the WNBA season happens on time, she wins. But if the season gets delayed or negotiations drag, she still wins. That's why people are reacting. Not because how dare she, but because it exposes a reality that's been building for a long time. Some players are tied to the WNBA calendar, but Caitlin is building a career that can survive without it. Now let's talk about what NBC actually did, because the details are what make this feel like a statement. NBC is launching Basketball Night in America. They're modeling it like a major event broadcast, the way they build big nights in football, and they're not hiding Caitlin in a side segment. Her debut is scheduled for February 1st before Lakers vs. Knicks at Madison Square Garden. That is one of the biggest stages you can possibly choose. And she's back March 9th for Thunder vs. Knicks. Again, primetime matchups, big markets, and a broadcast designed to travel on social media.
Announced on Tuesday that Caitlin Clark will join NBC Sports to serve as a special contributor for its new Basketball Night in America program. Caitlin Clark will make her debut as a TV analyst on February 1st, preceding the Lakers vs. Knicks game at Madison Square Garden, per a release from NBC. Wow. So this would be akin to, they have Sunday Night Football, and it starts with a pregame show called Football Night in America.
That's not a trial run. That's NBC saying, we are putting her in front of the entire basketball audience. And look at the desk they're giving her. Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Reggie Miller. That's a credibility wall. That's NBC saying Caitlin belongs in the same conversation as the game's most recognizable voices. Therefore, this isn't just about Caitlin getting another job. This is about NBC staking a claim in the future of basketball coverage.
Here we are. It will be Caitlin Clark's first time in an analyst-type role on TV. That's per Chloe Peterson. She will return to the broadcast table on March 9 for a game between Oklahoma City Thunder and the Knicks. Caitlin Clark joins Michael Jordan as a splashy acquisition for NBC and NBA coverage.
Now here's the part that makes WNBA players feel squeezed. When the union talks about leverage, the threat is time. If the season gets interrupted, players lose paychecks. They lose rhythm. They lose visibility. They lose momentum. But Caitlin's move creates a different reality. She can stay visible in the biggest basketball ecosystem in America, even if the WNBA gets messy. So while some players look at the next CBA and see risk, Caitlin looks at the same window and sees a runway. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying Caitlin is trying to undermine the union. I'm saying her personal incentives are now different because her income and spotlight are not dependent on the WNBA schedule. That difference matters during a labor fight because owners pay attention to who can hold their breath the longest. Networks pay attention to who can keep audiences engaged, and sponsors pay attention to who can guarantee visibility. Therefore, Caitlin's NBC role becomes leverage without her even saying a word. Now add the timing. Her 2025 season ended early due to injury in July, and if the WNBA season starts in May, you're looking at a long gap. A lot of players would use that gap to train, recover, and hope the league takes care of the rest. But Caitlin is filling that gap with three things: media, national team commitments, and brand work. So when people say WNBA players explode, what they're really describing is the fear of falling behind. Because in a star-driven league, visibility becomes currency. And Caitlin just locked in a currency printer that runs even if the WNBA pauses. Now here's where the story gets sharper. NBC didn't describe Caitlin as a star of women's basketball. They described her as one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Basketball, not women's basketball. Basketball, that's the line. And if you understand how networks think, you know why that line is nuclear. It's not just praise, it's positioning. It tells you NBC is not trying to keep Caitlin in a separate category. They're trying to move her into the mainstream basketball conversation beside NBA storylines, NBA debates, and NBA audiences. That is bigger than the WNBA. And that creates two reactions at the same time. Fans see it and think, finally, this is what should have happened. But players see it and think, wait, if the spotlight can move that fast for one person, what does that mean for the rest of us? Because the union's argument is collective value, but the market rewards individual gravity, and Caitlin has gravity. So when the CBA negotiations heat up, owners are going to make a quiet argument. They're going to say, the league is growing, but the growth is concentrated. They'll point to ratings spikes, ticket demand, sponsor interest, and social engagement around a small number of names. And Caitlin will be the center of that story, whether she wants to be or not. That's why this move is not just cool, it's strategic. It gives Caitlin options. It gives NBC a bridge between NBA coverage and WNBA coverage. But it also exposes the uncomfortable question the league has been avoiding. Is the WNBA trying to build an equal system, or is it becoming a star economy? Because if it's a star economy, players will fight harder for revenue share. But if it's an equal system, the league has to protect the collective, even when one person is clearly driving the most attention. And that contradiction is exactly what sets off friction. Now let me give you the real takeaway. If you're trying to predict whether the 2026 season is in danger, you don't need rumors. You need 3 signals. Signal 1, watch the union's language. If they move from general frustration to specific timelines, specific demands, and actual vote talk, that's when it gets real. Signal 2, watch the owner's concessions, not public statements, real changes, travel upgrades, roster expansion, revenue share movement. If you don't see tangible movement, the temperature rises. Signal 3, watch hedge behavior. When stars lock in outside platforms during the danger window, it tells you the industry is preparing for disruption. And when broadcasters build programming that can keep fans engaged, even if the WNBA calendar becomes uncertain, that tells you they're pricing in risk. Therefore, Caitlin joining NBC isn't just a headline. It's a signal that the biggest star in the league is building a career that doesn't rely on the league's stability. And that reality will force the WNBA to decide what it wants to be, a league that protects the collective, or a league that rides its stars. Because you can't do both forever. So here's the question. Is Caitlin's NBC move smart protection in a messy CBA year? Or is it the first domino that exposes how divided the money and leverage really are? If you're still watching, drop NBC panel in the comments.